indie author means that you need to make sure everything is in order for your book before it gets published, and that is a lot of work. Now, the good news is you can outsource some of these steps to professionals to help you save time and have your book look a lot more professional at the end. Outsourcing every step of book publication and creation can be very expensive, so I compiled the top 3 services that I think can be super helpful to outsource to professionals. Not only is this going to save you a ton of time, but also the end result is just going to look super professional, as if it has been published by a huge publishing house. So what are these 3 services and why should you outsource them? Now, we all know the age-old saying, don't judge a book by its cover, and while I generally agree with that saying, the truth is your book cover is the first impression readers are going to get of your book. That means it needs to look professional, and also it needs to fit with the theme and the genre of your book. And while as an indie author, you might be very well aware of what the genre of your book is about, and you might have a fantastic idea of your cover, you might not be a graphic designer. Because yes, maybe you could design your cover yourself using platforms like Canva. Is it Canva or Canva? And other graphic design softwares. There are a lot of pitfalls that you can fall into if you don't know exactly what you're doing. And that is in no way, shape, or form throwing shade at someone that doesn't know graphic design. Graphic design is a craft that needs years to learn and perfect. And when it comes to book covers, you really don't want to run into any trouble. Some of the biggest pitfalls that you can face with your book cover design, if you do it yourself but you don't really get graphic design, can be very technical stuff, such as a pixelated end result, or your royalties not being completely in order if you're using stock imagery, for example. But also just the altogether design concept is very important, that there is a deeper thought to it. A contemporary romance book is gonna look a lot more fun and lighthearted compared to a dark romance fantasy book. And yes, you might have a very clear vision of the design you want for your book cover. A professional book cover designer is gonna know exactly how to bring that vision to life and just making it look perfect. Now, this service can especially be helpful if you're planning on writing a series, because the designer of your book cover is going to know exactly what to do to make sure that every part of your series forms one cohesive design. So yeah, cover design is definitely a service I recommend outsourcing to professionals as an indie author. It can be a little bit pricey, but at the end, it's going to really be worth it. Book formatting is really a craft in and of its own. It has everything to do with typography, it has everything to do with layouting, and while it might seem like a very easy step in creating your book, janky formatting can really bring down the quality and just have an altogether unprofessional look at the end. Now, thankfully today there are a bunch of softwares out there like Vellum that make formatting incredibly easy for indie authors without having any real knowledge of typography and layouting. But they do have their limitations. When you choose to work with a professional in formatting, you will just be able to broaden the possibilities within your book and the book's interior design so much more than using these platforms. Someone that really knows what they're doing when it comes to typography is going to be able to determine the exact font you need to use for your book, while also giving you the option to choose between at least a couple of fonts, and they're just going to make sure that your book looks incredibly professional, just like any other book that you got from any other bookstore that has been published by any big name publishers. So while book formatting can be pricey and pretty time consuming, formatting a book can take up to anywhere between 2 to 4 weeks, depending on how long the book is, how many pages it is. It is really worth it to look into outsourcing this to a professional, not only to save yourself time, like I said, at least a good couple of weeks of time you can save for yourself, but also just to make sure that the end result of it is just perfect. Bad formatting and the pitfalls of it are really just all coming down to the reader not being able to read your book as easily. And while they might not be able to pinpoint exactly what the reason is that they put down your book and are not reading it, they're not having a fun time, they get tired very fast, they don't really understand what's going on, they might not be able to pinpoint the exact reason of it, but it can come down to bad formatting. And honestly, it would be such a pity if a potential reader put down your book, DNF'd it because they had a hard time reading it, and then they just end up not reading that book and your next book and your next book. Well, they would actually love the story and be huge fans of it. Just the bad typeface or the bad layout made it so that reading your book kind of felt like a chore to them. Real good formatting is gonna make sure that that doesn't happen. Now, the last service is definitely not the least important service that I wanted to talk about in today's video, and that is proofreading. Proofreading is such an important step in finalizing your book, and it's really important that it gets done right. Now, I want to preface this by saying that whenever I'm reading a book, no matter how new the author is or how well established and known that author is, whenever I find a typo within the book, I do get this kind of endearing feeling. It's kind of like, oh yeah, they're human too. They make mistakes as well. And I definitely don't mind the occasional small typo in any book I'm reading. It really just makes it feel like it was written by a real person. And especially in today's day and age when there is so much AI stuff going on, and me being a true hater of AI, reading a book with a typo is really just like, it feels real, you know? But that doesn't mean that you should have your book filled with typos. Now, proofreading isn't even a service that I offer at my creative agency. And the reason for that is because I suck at proofreading. I really only offer services where I know that I know what I'm doing and I know what I'm doing to the greatest detail. And with proofreading, I'm just horrible. Like, I will read over typos all the time. Now, you can outsource proofreading to professionals and they will probably do an incredibly good job at doing that for you. But the good thing about proofreading is you really only need a couple of friends or family members that love reading, are good at finding typos, they know how to write correctly, they know grammar, and just give them your book and ask them, hey, do you want to proofread my book? And I'm sure that if you have like 2 to 3 people do this for you, a bunch of typos are just going to be erased. So yeah, with proofreading, you really do have the option, outsource it to a professional or ask friends and family. The one tip I do want to give you is if you ask a friend or a family member to help you proofread the book, is make sure that they haven't read it before. The more times you read something, the less likely you are to find typos and mistakes in it, because eventually you kind of know what you're reading. So your brain kind of fills in the gaps. We don't really read every single letter of a word before the word gets formed in our head. That would mean it would take us ages to even read a sentence. You kind of see the letters, see the combination of the letters, and then your brain corrects that for you. That's why some people, like me, tend to look over a lot of typos. But if you have never read that piece of document, that paragraph, that chapter, the chances of you finding a typo are much bigger because your brain does need to pay a lot more attention to understand what's happening on the page. So if you're asking friends or family members to help you with proofreading, just make sure it is their first contact with the book, with that chapter, with that paragraph. So with these 3 services, I think you can really elevate the quality of your book when it comes to publishing. Obviously, there are a lot more services out there that you can use and utilize to create a much more professional and broader brand around yourself as an author. But I think it's really important that you make that choice for yourself. You make the selection in the things that you really want help of professionals, where you really want help from friends and family, and where you want to do it all by yourself. And I'm here to help you. So if you have any questions about services, about the different steps of publishing, you can always ask me and I'm more than happy to answer. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope I could help you with this. Make sure to watch my last video where I give you 6 tips on how to be seen as an author online and offline as well. And yeah, I hope to see you next time. Bye.